have our people in from online, Carbon? Okay. 60 seconds, all right. I'm just going to start talking a little bit because that helps the people who are out in the commons know that the forum is beginning. So this isn't even actually anything you all need to listen to. This is just me talking that the forum will begin and that we're going to close the doors soon. And if people want to join us, they should do so. All are welcome. Yes, please come on in. And Carbon, just give me a heads up when the rooms have closed and everybody's in from Zoom. Was that a countdown to 1? They are now. All right. Well, welcome, intrepid forum goers. I am Reverend Sara. I use she, her pronouns. I'm Director of Community and Faith Development here. And this is a forum that's one of our Skill Builder series. This one is on active listening and holding space. And we're going to leave the doors open for just a moment more, and then we'll close them so that we're holding space that's a little bit quieter for ourselves. But a few things to know about this forum. We have participants on Zoom. Hello, participants on Zoom. It's also being streamed to YouTube and recorded. So that means that if you have examples to share today or things to talk about, please do that in a way that respects other people's privacy and confidentiality, knowing that we are recording this and it will be posted on the website for perpetuity. So, or as long as we leave it on the website. And with that, Tiffany, would you mind closing our doors? I think that gave people enough time. So I'll begin with a chalice lighting and then get into our topic. So our chalice lighting words are by Robin F. Gray. We join our voices in a holy communion of mind and heart, dedicated to the promises that bind us in compassion one with another. In this hour, we light the flame that signals our intention to find the sacred in every living thing. It really does. It really does. So let's go to our next slide here. And please, any point along the course of this that you have questions or comments, if you're on Zoom, just raise your virtual hand or wave at Carbon and he'll get your question or comment into the room here. And if you're in the room with me, wave your physical hand. You don't get a digital hand or virtual hand, sorry. And I'll bring the microphone to you. We have to use the microphone or the people online can't hear us at all. So even if we're a small group, shouting at each other in here won't work. So the topic today is active listening and holding space. So our first question is, what is active listening? And the definition that I'm working with today is that active listening is a form of listening that creates an invitation to authentic sharing and leads to greater understanding of the other person. So it's both that it helps the listener understand more and that it invites more authentic sharing from the person who's being listened to. Now, if you could go to the next slide, Carbon. The definition I'm working from today for holding space is that It's creating a space that is safe enough that others can experience their feelings and share them as they desire, feeling themselves supported by the space and the other people in it. And we'll get into more detail about how to do all of these things as we go. Here's a quote that I like from the book, The Art of Holding Space. It says, "Holding space is what we do when we walk alongside a person or group on a journey through liminal space. We do this without making them feel inadequate, without trying to fix them, and without trying to impact the outcome. We open our hearts, offer unconditional support, and let go of judgment and control." So this is a skill builder, right? So when and why would we want this skill? How might we use this in our community lives here at OUC? Any thoughts of when and why we might want to use these skills? I see you.
Because we are a community of covenant, and we want to know, I will speak for me, I want to better know how to facilitate people, how to listen, because I think it's so important that we feel heard, and it's so seldom. So I want to learn how to do that better. I'm also a peer specialist, and your definition of holding space is exactly what that is. So how to make people, how to keep people safe. That's important.
Well, those are two of the things we do on pastoral care, is we create space, holding space for individuals, and also active listening is one of our main tools.
Yeah, so we have a pastoral care team here, and those folks are officially doing that work of active listening and holding space. And we are all part of a covenantal community, and so we're all wanting to listen to each other. That's what I'm hearing from those two answers. Any other answers of when and why? Yeah.
Well, we're really not separate from each other. And when we speak, it's like everyone is speaking. It's like when you speak, I'm speaking in a way through you. You know, we're not really separate, and we need each other, and so we really need this community, and we need to know that we can depend on each other. And you're listening to me, and my listening to you, it tells me that I can depend on you, that you really see me and you really hear me, and I need that.
I hope we're going to discuss today how you let people know that they're listening, or how you give people time and space to acknowledge what you're saying before you jump into your own experience.
Pass it right to James next to you.
For me, this is a part of the human community. And whenever I stop and listen to what someone is really saying and don't chatter so much, I learn something. And that's very valuable to me.
Yeah. So I heard interconnection, that we're not really separate, we need each other. I heard that there's also this issue of, are we giving enough time to hear each other before we jump in to answer? And that it is heart-filling for us, both to listen and be heard. Be my paraphrasing of what I heard there. Carbon, do we have anyone online that we're not hearing from? All right, wonderful. So these are just I would say, some of the when and whys. When, though, if I could expound further from what I heard from you all, is it could be at a meeting, it could be at an official time, it could be during coffee hour, it could be when you're with a congregant at a social function. It could be that you went to an auction dinner and then it turns into a moment of listening. It really can happen anytime, and it's not just a role for the official pastoral care team or the ministers. Yeah. Next slide, please, Carbon. So the first step that we need to practice before we do active listening or holding space is we need to become present. And often, we may be physically present. Thank you, Liz. Hold on, Ann, help is coming. You got it, okay. So we may be physically present and not truly present. So putting away distractions, set down the phone, close the laptop, whatever it is. Settling your inner dialogue. So whatever is going on, not that you have 100% control over your monkey mind, of course, and we don't have to be Zen masters to be able to listen to each other, but as much as possible, settle your inner dialogue. Just let your thoughts come to some sense of calm. So many different techniques, and different people find that different things work for them. So there's, many, many different ways to do this. And coming to a meditation group or practicing meditation is one way to learn how to settle your inner dialogue, but you might have other ways. And then focus on the other person. Although the picture that I found for this is rather intense focusing. And so you don't need to model that body language to actually be focusing on another person. In fact, I want to say that sometimes when you look up like how to do active listening, you may find stuff about eye contact online. Frequently it says like, get good eye contact. And I want to push back a little bit on that. So eye contact is great for some people and not for everyone. Getting really intense eye contact can be intimidating. It can feel aggressive. It can feel uncomfortable. So it's not something that you really want to force. If the person that you're listening to is giving you eye contact and you are comfortable returning it, that can establish some connection. But it's in no way necessary to force eye contact to really be listening. Some of the best listening happens when people aren't even facing each other. Think about when you're on a walk with someone, so you're both walking in the same direction. Or people who have kids find frequently that it's when they're driving their kids in the car that they can have the best conversations. You might have the best conversation when you're both working side by side on a mutual task. So facing each other with full eye contact intensity is not necessary. No.
It's really a cultural thing.
Yeah, so it's really a cultural thing, Michael said. And that's true. Like, that's a certain culture, and not all cultures do that. And I saw a hand here.
And also telephone. And sometimes chat. What I've learned on pastoral care, well, during the pandemic, all we had was telephone contact, and we actually did call everyone frequently. And so I think sometimes for some of the people that I follow, that's what's more comfortable for them, is phone contact. And a few people just want me to text, which is a little more challenging, but.
Yes, and those different technologies might be a generational thing also, that some people are more comfortable on the phone, some with text.
I learned in school that it's cultural. in a lot of ways. In what they were comparing American culture to Hispanic culture, and what they wrote in the book was Hispanic believe that eye contact, if you avoid eye contact, that's aggressive. And in American culture, if you avoid eye contact, that's not aggressive. So it's culturally completely opposite from each other. So if you're talking to a Hispanic guy, make eye contact, you're probably likely to have better results.
Although it might be partly generational, I did want to bring up that it was a while ago I heard about this, so I don't remember where it came from, but there were studies about texting versus phone call. And what I remember is that phone call, Zoom, and being in person are like in one category where you can hear someone's voice, and then texts, emails, writing letters are in a category where you don't. And the category where you can hear people's voice is apparently, it meets human social needs in a way that the written ones don't, is what I've heard.
Yeah. And with all of these, I will just throw out that mileage may vary, and we can make generalizations about culture, but also whenever working with an individual, they are an individual. Yeah. So let's go to our next slide, which gets to a little bit more of this. So when we are doing active listening, we want to go beyond the words as much as possible. Words matter, of course words matter. Word choice matters, but there's a lot of other things that are being communicated, particularly when you can see the person or hear their voice. So there's tone of voice. You can get a lot from tone of voice. That's part of why miscommunication over text and email, because you don't know the tone of voice. And so then we have to add in all the exclamation marks and the smiley faces to give it some tone. But because people do communicate with all of those exclamation points and smiley faces and emojis, and there's tone conveyed through that also. There's a little bit of difference, like punctuation in texts comes across to different generations differently. I see the parents are laughing. Yes, you may have been told in the past by your child, that was so passive aggressive of you to text me like that. You put a period at the end of the sentence. Where are you? Period. Or I'm getting eyes. You want to add anything to that, Carbon? No? Okay. Yeah.
I never had a problem with this. For some reason, in the circles I've been in, no one's ever judged each other's communication style, and I write very, grammatically correct, but nobody ever thinks I'm judging them because I wrote that way. So I don't know. That's not been my experience, so maybe it's not universal.
Nothing is universal. Yeah, nothing is. Yeah. So what you may get something from tone, and the awareness that sometimes we read the tone in a way it wasn't meant to be. With all of this, to achieve successful communication is the goal, and it's tricky. There's body language, if you can see the person. And this, again, sometimes some people have just naturally different body language. You can't always say that folded arms means anger or withdrawal. It might be that that's natural body language for that person. It's helpful if you know the way a person usually presents, because then you can see, so the more you know somebody, the more you pick up on these cues. But you may notice things from the body language of the person you're listening to. And then general vibes, which is hard to define, but it's just that you get a sense of the vibes of it. Is the vibe happy? Is the vibe distressed? Is the vibe uncomfortable? And that's really hard to define, how you're picking up on vibes. That's why we call them vibes, because we just don't understand them. But you are picking up on something, and pay attention to that. Anything online before I move on to the next slide? All right, next slide, please. So if you're in the role of the listener for active listening, you want to shift yourself into a position of being curious, not into a interrogator or I'm going to figure out what's going on with you, but instead just into an open curiosity. And that's really just a switch that you do inside yourself to move into curiosity. And then sounds of encouragement can help a person know that they're being listened to and encourage them to keep talking. And that really can be anything. It can just be, yeah, I mean, you're conveying that you're still plugged in without interrupting them much. So it doesn't need to be a lot that you're giving them, but it's just some sounds of encouragement to know that you're still there. And with phone calls in particular, to know that the call hasn't been dropped, that there's still a person on the other end of this line. And the other thing, that gestures of encouragement can also be used. It doesn't have to be a sound. It could be leaning in, nodding your head, smiling. It could be that those are ways of conveying encouragement to keep talking as well. And then if you ask questions, make them be open-ended questions. So again, it's not an interrogation. It's not a well, are you afraid right now? That's a yes or no question. That's a yes or no. But tell me how you're feeling right now is open-ended. Any questions or comments about any of this? Woody?
There's just one thing that comes to mind for me that I've noticed about myself is that I breathe. I frequently will take a deep breath. It's for me, but it communicates something to the other person. So I'm sitting, I'm listening, and I breathe in or out or whatever. Anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah, one of my people that I work with, my supervisor for my spiritual direction practice, is particularly good at this, that I'll share something and he'll just do this pause and he does a deep breath. And then he just is quiet. And I'm like, okay, so he just breathed on the last thing I said. So now I should say some more. But yeah, the quality of your breathing is part of the communication that you're giving people. Yeah. All right, next slide, please. So then after you've listened to someone and you want to go to a response, some helpful responses are meant to still lead to more understanding of what the person said. Now, Maureen earlier said, don't just be ready to jump in with your own story. That is a very common form of casual communication. Somebody shares something, somebody else says, I totally get that. I blah, 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 blah. And that's fine in casual conversation, but it is not active listening. Active listening is to stay focused on the other person. So when it is time to respond, some helpful responses are to paraphrase back what you heard. And to do it not in a, this is what you said, you must agree to it, but rather this is what I heard, is that accurate? Or to do it in a way that's a helpful mirror. So you could say something like, I noticed that you keep using this word. I noticed that you keep saying, I should. I'm curious about that word should that you're using. That also can be a helpful response of just curiosity, which falls into this, this reflecting back as well. You can also offer empathy. It seems like that's hard. You don't have to say, I know how you feel. You don't necessarily know how someone else feels. And you may have never experienced anything like what they're describing to you. And that's okay. Saying, that sounds hard to me. I imagine that makes you frustrated. That is a fine moment of offering empathy and connection without assuming understanding. And then you can seek clarification also. I don't quite understand. Can you give me more context? Or, who is this person in your life? Or whatever it is that you're not quite understanding. Questions or comments on any of this response step? All right, I see many smiles and nods, and that gives me the signal that we can move on. And if I wasn't understanding you all, then you can stop me. So now we get to holding space, which could be for a group of people, it could be for an individual. And so when we're holding space, the goal, again, if we go back to our definition of holding space, is to create a space safe enough for another to experience their feelings and share them if they desire sharing them. So we really are first just trying to make a safe space, not even necessarily inviting sharing. So the first thing you need to do is hold space for yourself. And that, again, depends on many personal choices and techniques, what works for you. Some people I know envision that they have like a safe container, like they picture it, and then they're like, this is my safe space inside me, where all of my needy self is held and is safe, and it doesn't need to be part of this space right now because I've got this safe, loving space here. I personally don't find that visualization very helpful, and even though that was one that I was taught repeatedly, I instead imagined that I'm dropping an anchor. I'm just dropping an anchor into the earth, and the earth is holding me. And the earth has capacity to hold everything. Everything I need it to hold. That one works for me. None of these are things that you need to copy. Just the idea is that you are still going to have needs even as you are holding space for others. Something, maybe you're just hungry and your tummy is gurgling. Maybe something itches. Maybe, and you just want to have some safe holding for yourself also. And then we need to accept that we aren't going to fix anything. We're not here to fix people. And sometimes trying to fix does more harm than good. Advice giving, don't know if that person wants that advice. So accepting that your role is not to fix and just laying that hammer down. Don't need it. You don't need tools. All you need is heart and self. The toolbox can stay. And then, pause there.
I'd like to add that accepting that I can't fix something for another person acknowledges it's their challenge and their progress, and my listening may help without offering to fix it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's respect for another person too, leaving them their autonomy and consent.
Also, when we try to fix or we're trying to tell somebody, it isn't all that bad, or I did this and I felt better, we're minimizing what they're telling us. And I think that that is just something to be so aware of, because we in our society do not know what to do with grief, with sorrow, with anger, any heavy emotion. And the first thing we want to do is say, oh, no, 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 you don't need to feel that way. I'm uncomfortable with this, so let me tell you what to do so I'm comfortable.
Yeah, it was in Reverend Mary's sermon today that we are supposed to behave ourselves in this society. And big feelings aren't behaving ourselves. Yeah. So fixing lots of problems but it's easy to fall into because we have been socialized to do that, and because it can make us feel more comfortable. So if you find yourself holding that hammer, ready to fix something, some self-compassion. Oh yeah, society told me to pick up this hammer. I'm doing this because I'm doing this because it's going to soothe my feelings. Breathe, set down the hammer. Yeah. And that comes to this next step of co-regulating. So something that is a very powerful tool is that humans' nervous systems come into this mutual state of regulation. We pick up on the energy state of the people around us. So if a person is really activated, their nervous system is going, that is energy that can activate the nervous systems of the people around them. But if you can regulate your nervous system, that is energy that can calm the nervous systems of the people around you. So if you can just take a breath, if you can settle yourself, if you can hum or, stroke yourself a little bit, any of these techniques that settle a nervous system helps you be calm and present, but it is also becoming this contagious energy of calm to help other people regulate their nervous systems around you. And there's all kinds of science about how our brains mirror each other, our nervous systems mirror each other, and why that would be a good survival technique for us to pick up on the energy of our group or our tribe. And it's just a fabulous, fabulous piece of human connection. That when we breathe, it brings calm to another body that we're not even breathing into. But us breathing can bring them calm. And this is something to really notice, because you might get so focused on the other person that you forget to regulate yourself. I was serving as a chaplain at a retreat, and somebody who was very, very upset came and said, "Chaplain, can I have a hug?" And so, of course, I give them a hug, and I'm like, they're not settling. And then I'm like, I'm holding my breath. Then they settled, right? So notice what's going on inside of you and keep regulating it. It's going to help them regulate. And then allow the feelings to flow, whatever they are. Now, some of them may be hard, and it may get uncomfortable, but just allow the person or the people, if this is a group, to have their feelings. And maintain positive regard or loving kindness. So as the person is having their feelings, you are maintaining positive regard for them. Some call this unconditional love. Some call this loving kindness. I have to tell you, it can be hard depending on what people are expressing. And this gets a lot harder if the feelings that they're expressing are in any way about you. So take all of this, we're talking about this in a congregational context, but just imagine for a minute that this is like a housemate or an intimate partner who's having feelings about how nobody washes the dishes here. And you're trying to maintain unconditional love for them and their feelings about the dishes. This isn't a goal of you have to be a saint, right? You don't have to be a saint to hold space. You're still holding space for yourself and your feelings too. And maintaining as much positive regard as you can. Yeah, James.
With regard to feelings, I have a question and a comment. If I'm listening, feelings are arising in me too. It's as you mentioned, the hug. So if I acknowledge them in myself, then I recognize what I'm doing. You know, you said you weren't breathing. If I can do that, I don't necessarily have to share my feelings, but I do need to be aware of them.
Yes. Yeah, recognizing what's happening inside of you and having that level of self-awareness. And you mentioned you don't necessarily need to share them. And yeah, a lot of times here you wouldn't share the feelings you're having. There could be times, though, that you would. There could be times that you would say, I have to say, this is bringing up a level of anxiety for me, and so I'm going to breathe for a minute. You know? And that's okay. It's okay to acknowledge sometimes that you also have needs and are human and what you're feeling. Yeah. Yeah. Again, this is not a practice for saints. This is a practice for human beings. All right. Anything else on this holding space? Yeah.
It occurs to me that the practice of active listening and holding space is really an antidote to reactivity, which is something we all have. And maybe that's even the natural state of things. And then the ability to hold space is something we can learn. Yeah, and it also occurs to me that boundaries are really important for all of this, because if we try to do this without really good boundaries, it can get really messy. Yeah.
Yes. In some ways, reactivity replaces the need to work on good boundaries. When people are reactive, something comes at you, boom, you push it away. You don't even have to think about what it was that came at you. Something came at you, boom, you push it back. And that's the way humans in our society often react, reactively. Boundaries, you have to think about, what are my boundaries? What do I allow through? And what do I not allow through? And when is it okay for there to be a storm over here and it's not my storm, but I can still witness the storm? Because I have a boundary that says that's not my storm, but I'm here to witness it. Yeah. Online? So Holly asks, how do you balance the not fixing part with sharing resources that they might not know about? Example, I was listening to a friend and at the end asked if they would be interested in knowing about a resource that might be helpful. She was very grateful to hear about wild grief. Well, Holly, I think you just gave the answer in your example. You listened first, and at the end, you asked if they would like to hear about a resource that you know. So that's not fixing. That's offering and waiting for consent before you give. Would you like for me to offer you this gift? Yes, you would, then yes, I will give it. Fixing might instead be that they're trying to talk about their grief, and you say, interrupting them, you say something like, you would be absolutely fixed if you just went on a wild grief retreat. Right? Or, You know, I had that same problem. I stopped eating sugar and it all went away. Those are fixings that are not invited.
I really like the question once I learned it and use it a lot is, are you looking for a listening ear, or are you looking to brainstorm what would feel most supportive to you right now? And wait until, and maybe they do want to brainstorm, but maybe they want to be heard first, and so then put a pin in it and come back around.
That's a great phrase, yes.
Thank you all for having this conversation. I wanted to mention that holding can evoke stillness, that stillness is required, and movement can be a part of all of these things as well. So it may be that in order for you to hold space for yourself, you need to move a little bit before you can listen to someone well. And it might be that part of the co-regulation is, you seem a little bit agitated right now. Would it help to move around? Would it help to take a walk? Folks know that when they come and meet with me, I will often offer a walk. Would it be better if we took a walk? And sometimes talking like this is easier for people than talking like this, right? So just know that this doesn't need to be still or quiet or sitting. It can involve movement for you and for the relationship.
Absolutely. Yes, please come on in and get what you need. Don't worry. So next slide, please, Carmen. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about before we try practicing is hugging a porcupine. This may be more familiar to people who have parented adolescents, but it could be for many other situations. So maybe you're trying to hold space for somebody pretty prickly. And maybe it's actually seems like they're pushing you away, or it's not really safe for you. First thing is, nobody has an obligation to hug a porcupine when they're not safe. So, you know, in parenting books, they say you don't have to hug any porcupines except for your children. Sometimes you have a responsibility to another being where maybe you are going to keep hugging them even if they are full-on porcupines. But other times, it is okay to say, this does not feel good to me, and either I'm going to get somebody else to listen to you, or just, I'm going to have to leave this situation. And so don't feel like when you engage with active listening or holding space that you are putting yourself in the position of being a martyr either. It doesn't have to hurt. It shouldn't hurt. That said, there are also some ways to hug a porcupine. So if you work with animals and you need to give a cat a pill, for instance. How many people have wrapped a cat up in a towel? Yes. Why do we wrap them up in a towel? So they won't scratch and bite us. Yes. The flip of this when talking to a person is that maybe we need some more containment. Maybe I can listen to you if we do it in a place that feels more safe to both of us. So it might be that when we're listening to somebody who is particularly expressing feelings of anger, that we need to do it in a place that doesn't also feel like we're physically trapped, right? So for you to maintain your regulation and co-regulation, maybe you can listen to anger in an open space, but you couldn't listen to anger when you're standing in the corner and they're standing in front of you, right? It could be that you can listen to and hold space for someone if you help them get their needs met first. Also, like maybe the porcupine calms down if it's had a snack. So there are those times of like, are you hungry Or are you angry? Or both? And if we fix the one easy technical problem, can we now actually hold space for the larger issue? You know, perhaps that's another time to move around, is when you're trying to hold space for a porcupine. Maybe going for a walk with the porcupine is better than trying to hold it in your lap. So just with this whole metaphor of the porcupine, know that you don't have to impale yourself on the spines. Look for other ways to deal with the porcupines in your life. And again, in parenting books, some of the stuff that they recommend is stuff like, I see that you have a lot of anger right now, and I'm gonna let you have that anger in your own space, but know that I am here holding you in love when you're ready to come back and talk to me. And that's still holding space for someone. It is still holding space for them. It's saying, I'm still available, I'm still here, you are not rejected, you are not controlled, you are just held at what is a safe distance for right now, and then we'll come back into connection again.
To me, it seems like the raised quills on a porcupine or the raised tail on a skunk is a very clear communication that I need to back off just a little bit and be respectful.
Give me space, they say. Yeah, yeah. So I want to do a little practice. And what we're going to do I wanted to do this for 10, 12 minutes. Maybe we'll try to go a little bit shorter so we have some time for checkouts at the end. But we're going to get into triads, if at all possible. And if that doesn't work out mathematically, we can have a group that's just a pair, or we can have a group that's larger than a pair. And we're going to have some reflection questions. So in the triad, ideally, we have a listener, we have a sharer, and we have an observer. And then we switch. But the observer will give some feedback to the listener. I noticed you did this, I noticed you did that. So for just 2 or 3 minutes, we have one person sharing, one person listening, and one person observing. And then we'll switch so that everybody in the group gets a turn. Carbon, is that going to work mathematically with the people we have online, or we have just one group are active? So we'll put maybe, so if you're online and you find yourself in a group breakout room that doesn't have people participating, remember that you can come back and Carbon can move you into another room. But we'll get into breakout rooms online. And here in the room, we actually have exactly the right numbers. So, so if we have Ann, Michael, and Maureen be a group, and James join Tiffany and Polly, and then this row will be a group, and that makes groups of 3s. And so I will give you a time alert when it's time to switch roles within your group. But find your groups and decide who's the first listener. You're listening to answers to the reflection questions from the worship service today.
We didn't catch the third person in the group.
Yes, this is your 3 right here. Yeah. All right, we're going to come back into whole group. We're bringing our Zoom room folks back in. That takes 60 seconds. So you have approximately 45 seconds to rearrange your chairs. Or they're in already? All right. So I just wanted to thank you for staying a little bit over our usual time, and wanted to ask if there were any observations that anyone had from that practice time that you'd like to share.
I noticed two people can both be active listening in the same conversation, even when they're doing an exercise.
Absolutely. We can just all be active listening.
I was reminded once again, it really feels nice when somebody listens.
It does. Yes. Being heard, being understood. It's a human need. Human need, and definitely a need of community. Yeah, anything else?
This activity is so much at the heart of what we're doing in this community, and it's really why we're here. All of us are looking for the same thing, to be listened to be heard, and to be actively engaged. Yeah.
Yes, the purpose of faith community. Is there any sharing from online? Our group found it very helpful. A couple of comments made me feel like I made an important point. Listener, made me think about. Ah, lovely.
Just like it's so healing, and we all need healing.
Yes, breathe to that. We all need healing. Well, we'll stop it here, and I want to thank you so much for your active participation. And this recording will be available for those who weren't here today. If you are interested in other skill builders that we've done on other similar topics, facilitation skills, dealing with difficult participants or conflict in your group, and creating covenant together, were all previous skill builders that might interplay with this one as well. And those recordings are on our website. I'm going to extinguish our chalice, but not this light of healing and community that it represents. May we carry that light forth in our hearts. Thank you all.